Welcome back to the Birdhouse Dynasty show. And tonight's Ask Me Anything Week 14 recap, Week 15 preview. It is playoff week in our fantasy football seasons. Let's get ready to rumble. The big games are here. Many of you may have had a play-in playoff game in Week 14 and help you recap those games, go over them, see what maybe improvements you can make going into Week 15, which hopefully you made it. Yes. So, for everybody who's ready, buckle up. Let's get into some of the action. Of course, we had the college football playoffs being determined over the weekend. We had the conference championship games on Saturday night, and we had a lot of so after the game Saturday night, then Sunday morning they went through and then they revealed the college football playoff in the afternoon. And we had Nick Saban bitching about it because Bama didn't get in, blah, 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 blah. Why should we have a good strength of schedule? Blah, blah. Listen, Nick, I get it. Okay. Let's just have an SEC tournament at the end of the season for y'all, right? Why are the other conferences even performing here? I mean, obviously you had the best schedule, so come on, dude. What do you think this is here? You had 3 losses. You lost to 2 6-6 teams. Don't lose to Vanderbilt or Oklahoma, and you wouldn't have had this conversation. You literally were the top ranked 3-loss team. Congratulations. Okay. Jeez, Nick. What do you think the NFL is just gonna let the Niners in as a 9-loss team? Because well, Niners had a first place schedule and they're the most talented team in the league. So they should be in the playoffs because they could beat anybody. Yeah. Well, you probably were favored by 21 to Vandy and over 20 to Oklahoma, too. Win your games. Hello. I'll take an SMU team that lost by 3 to a ranked BYU team early in the year and then lost in overtime in their college football conference championship game. Okay. They made their conference championship game. I don't care if it was the Sun Belt Conference, they were in it. Okay. The SEC isn't even the best conference. So shove it, Nick. They didn't even have a team in the championship game last year. All right. I'm just sick of hearing about the SEC and this garbage that I mean, all it is artificial rankings from the beginning of the season when no games have been played. It's the only reason there are so many ranked teams in the SEC, and all these matchups are this artificially flavored strength of schedule. Yeah, if you've got 10 teams ranked in the top 25 when everybody is 0-0, then of course the games are going to look like they're harder. Jeez. All right, enough about that. Ashton Genty and Boise is in the playoffs. They get a week off because they got to bye because they won their conference. Yeah. And they lost by 1 to Oregon. How about that for a non-conference game, Nick? Go play Oregon in a non-conference game out there. Try that. So sick of his crap. Like you're not even coaching anymore. Who cares? Give me Army over them. Give me Liberty. Liberty's undefeated. I would much rather just see them lose on the field then. You know what I mean? Alabama lost to Vanderbilt and to Oklahoma this year. Their best non-conference game was a Wisconsin team that went 5-7 and isn't getting into a bowl game for the first time in 22 years. So how's that for a Wisconsin game as a non-conference game? Anyway, I'll have my college football rankings out. I have them sitting on my Patreon right now at patreon.com/Birdhouse Dynasty Show. You can check those out. You can see where I've got Ashton Denti, TMC, Tet McMillan, Jalen Milrow, Cam Ward, and Shadur Sanders, as well as Travis Hunter, all ranked in the 2025 rookie class for you. We'll get it updated. Probably by Wednesday, I'll have those updates for you. But you can check out where I've had them for the last week over on the Patreon right now. We're watching the Cowboys Bengals in a tight one here. It's 17 all. Chase lighting it up, CD lighting it up. It is exciting. Yes. All right. So we have plenty of fireworks um this week in the NFL. I just want to go over the college football playoff bracket while we're on that tangent. There, here we go. Here is the college football playoff bracket for you guys. Let's do it. There we go. Okay, so up. There we go. Now I've got it for you. Okay. So in the upper left-hand corner of the bracket, we have the fourth seeded Arizona State Sun Devils getting the bye there, winning the Big 12 championship. They were ranked 15th in the country going into last week, but they squeezed out Clemson as the last conference winner. So they get the bye. Clemson winning their conference as the fifth best conference champ did not get a bye. So their present was to take on the fifth ranked Texas Longhorns, who lost in the SEC championship. So it's Clemson, Texas, for the right to take on the hot Sun Devils, one of the hottest teams in the country right now. And they're back. Cam Skatibo. Yes, I'm loving some Cam. He is, I believe, second in the country to Ashton Genty in all-purpose yards, second in touchdowns. It's just tearing it up. This guy is a ball of thunder. Be sure to watch Arizona State this upcoming month. Down in the lower tier, lower left-hand corner there, you've got the number one seeded, undefeated Big Ten champion Oregon Ducks and their leader, Dylan Gabriel. They've got a good running back, James Jones, a couple good wide receivers. Not sure where they're going to get taken in the draft. Tez Johnson and Evan Stewart. I have Evan Stewart ranked a little higher. He's a little bigger wide receiver. Tez Johnson is one of those little dudes. Then you've got James Jones, who's been a good running back for his career, and he should be a solid NFL back as well. Dylan Gabriel, not so much as an NFL prospect, probably a good backup quarterback. He's a shorter, left-handed throwing, very accurate quarterback. But I don't know that he has the size that NFL scouts love, so he'll definitely have to compete and probably watch some NFL action before he gets in to the league. Those Ducks will be taking on the winner of Tennessee, Ohio State. Ohio State gets to host that one. That's the 8-9 matchup. So Oregon not getting any real favors there from the committee as the one seed because they're, well, even if it's Tennessee, I mean, neither one is an easy game for the Ducks. Going to the upper right-hand corner, there you have the Boise State Broncos, 3 seed coming in. They only have one loss on the schedule. That was a loss to Oregon by 3 early in the year. They've ran the table since then, beating UNLV in their conference championship game. And the story there, of course, is Ashton Genty. So we'll see if it's either Penn State or SMU getting to take them on. They'll be playing in Happy Valley there and should be a wild one. Hopefully SMU can show up and show out so that it can keep all those Bama SEC lovers shut up. Either one, though, will be a great matchup with Boise in the second round. And then the bottom right corner, I'm going to move it up here for you because my little, I'm in the way there. Okay, there you go. So we've got a fun one. Notre Dame gets to host the Hoosiers in a wild one. It'll be the Saturday night game on the 20th there. No, sorry, Friday night. It's going to be the opening game. And yes, it'll be in South Bend, the in-state sort of rivals. I don't know that they've actually played each other that much, just because I don't know if the Irish wanted the Hoosiers on the schedule until this year, where the Hoosiers and their new head coach brought in a bunch of guys from his, I believe he was at James Madison, brought a bunch of his guys with him, went out and grabbed a bunch of guys in the portal. No big five-star guys, just a lot of guys hungry to prove their value and worth, and they're gritty, and they got the 10 seed, so they get to travel to Notre Dame. The winner of that matchup gets to take on the Georgia Bulldogs, who got the 2 seed after winning the SEC title on Saturday, wild one against Texas. They, of course, have their backup quarterback, didn't get the FSU treatment and get knocked out of the playoffs just because they didn't have their starting quarterback. But needless to say, that was 2023. This is 2024 now. We have 12 teams. I'm sure FSU would have been in the playoffs had it been this year. So, wham, enough of that. But should be a great matchup here with the Irish and Hoosiers. I would expect the Irish to move on and go take on the Bulldogs in the second round. Now, these second round games, the first round games will be at the best seeded team's home stadium. So you have 4 home games for the playoffs, which should be wild. Then they will actually go on 2 bowl games. So like the Oregon game, whoever they match up against will be technically, it will be at the Rose Bowl, and that will be the Rose Bowl this season. So, yeah, and then they'll move on to the national semifinals and the championship game. All right. So moving along from the college football news from the weekend, we've got the NFL. And let's get to our week 14 recaps. Bring up some action for you. Let's see here. What do we want to do? Let's just take a minute. I'll get these ready for you. Just making sure I got the right site I want to show you the box scores on. Okay. Use these guys. Okay, there we go, everybody. All right. Ready to see some box scores? All right, here we go. So, got the Bengals Cowboys going on. There it is. They're 17 all. Let's go back to Thursday night, and we had the big game in the Motor City. Packers traveling to the Motor City, take on their interdivision rivals, the Lions, who came into the game 11-1. As you see, the Lions prevailed 34-31 in a tight one, as expected. Now, the main fantasy detriment there was Jaden Reed just not showing up. Unfortunately, Jordan Love didn't quite get the passing volume he was hoping for. There you can see he was 12 for 20, 206 yards and a touchdown. Jaden Reed was left just one target on the day, no catches, nothing to speak of. Christian Watson was the main benefactor of that target distribution. He had 4 grabs on 7 targets with 114 yards to finish the evening. Josh Jacobs, the big news for the Packers, with 3 touchdowns on 66 yards. So all of you Josh Jacobs owners continue to reap the benefits of his big season. First year in Green Bay. For the Lions, the running backs were the story once again, as both Montgomery and Gibbs got into the end zone. Montgomery, 51 yards on the ground with the touchdown. Gibbs just 43 yards, but had 30 yards receiving and a touchdown. Montgomery added 33 through the air. So they both ended up with roughly 70 to 80 yards total offense and a touchdown. Goff, 32 of 41 for 283, 3 touchdowns and a pick. Amon-Ra stifled a little there, 5 for 43 only. Tim Patrick stole the red zone looks, getting 2 touchdowns. Very evenly distributed target share for the Lions. As you can see, they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 guys with 5 or more targets. So they spread it around. JMO got 5 for 80, Laporta 5 for 54. So no donuts for anybody on the Lions, but again, no big performers either. So, all right, let's move on to the next matchup. There we have, let's skim through the Jacksonville, Tennessee game. This one was real ugly. Mac Jones versus Will Levis. Who do we really bring up here other than Brian Thomas getting 8 for 86, Calvin Ridley 7 for 59 on 12 targets, Tony Pollard getting over 100 yards somehow in this ugly brawl, 21 for 102. Tank Bigsby finding the end zone, getting 55 yards on the ground as well. But otherwise, just let's forget about this one. All right, moving along. We will check out the New York Jets Miami action. And we had Aaron Rodgers finally showing up for all of you who had to start him this week, which may have been many since we had 6 teams on bye, and just about all 6 of those had good quarterbacks. So Rodgers was in plenty of Superflex 2 quarterback lineups. And he came out of there with 27 for 39, 339, and a touchdown. That touchdown to Devontae Adams, who finished the game 9 for 109 and a touchdown. So those of you who may have made a late season swap, scoop up the veteran Adams for your playoff push, were gratefully rewarded at least week 14. Breece Hall absent this one, nursing a hamstring, and he might be out 2 to 3 weeks. Actually, it wasn't a hamstring. I'm sorry. It was a sprained MCL. That's it. Braylon Allen, many hoped this would be a breakout game for him. Isaiah Davis had different ideas because he was the one that got into the end zone. Basically split the carries, 11 for 43 for Braylon, 10 for 40 for Isaiah Davis. And then you can see he ran the touchdown in. Sorry, he didn't catch the touchdown. But Isaiah Davis did end up with 3 catches for 27 yards. Braylon Allen 4 for 38. So the distribution without Breece Hall was very even. So that, going into the playoffs, you got to be real thin for me to say that you should be trusting Braylon Allen in your flex spot for next week. As for Garrett Wilson, 7 for 114. Don't mind that. Wish he would have gotten the end zone to make it even better, but still, we'll take it. On the other side, Miami's offense coming to life here too, with multiple back-to-back weeks here. 331 through the air, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Got a touchdown to Tyreek Hill, who finally showed up for his owners when they needed him most. Maybe it was Too little, too late for Tyreek's owners. But anyway, if you've got him and you're going into the playoffs, you can't, you wouldn't want any more. I mean, this is great. 10 for 115 and a touchdown. That's at least 27, 28 points in just about any format. Jalen Waddle just under the century mark, 9 for 99. So you gotta love seeing both of them just dominate. And then you have the man of the hour at the tight end position, Jonnu Smith. Go scoreless all game long. And then the first possession of overtime, he just dominates. 3 for 44 and the touchdown to end the game. Gotta love Jonnu. Oof. Any of you Jonnu owners out there, all I gotta say is just start him in the playoffs. All right. Tua, he's a borderline QB1 now. I mean, it's going to depend on matchups going forward in the playoffs, but we got to love what we've seen over the last few weeks. I mean, Tua doesn't represent any rushing upside, but you know, when things are going for them between Tyreek and Waddle, and now the emergence of Jonnu, and you've got Achane out of the backfield. Achane here got a touchdown rushing, only 14 to 24 on the ground, but you add the 6 for 45 through the air, and it's just another day at the office for Achane, right? So Miami offense looking good. All right. Next up, let's see here. Oh, we'll delight in this one here. Let's bring up the big bad thumbnail, guys. Yeah. Chef Sam Darnold serving it up. Ooh, to the tune of 5 touchdowns on 347 throwing through the air. Man, Sammy D coming through. Again, 6 teams on bye. Darnold had to be in the starting lineups of most Superflex 2 quarterback owners' teams. That benefited Jordan Addison the most because he had 3 touchdowns. Jefferson only had 2. Addison 8 for 133 and the touchdown. Jefferson 7 catches on 7 targets, 132 and 2 touchdowns. I don't know if you can get any more efficient than that. So going forward, it's hard to argue against starting these guys. I mean, obviously you're starting Jefferson, Addison. You got to roster construct right just so that he is in your lineup. You don't want to miss out on games like this because these are games he was always capable of. So I don't know that he's going to rattle off 3 straight games like this. Probably not like this. I don't know if he'll have another game like this in his career, but you get what I'm saying. You want his ceiling in your lineup, essentially. Aaron Jones, a little underwhelming. Did finish with 73 yards on the ground and fell into the end zone. Just 2 for 11 through the air, but we'll take it. It's serviceable. On the Falcons side, Kirk Cousins just, I can see it now. The future is Penix. And now, with the Falcons falling out of first place, with the Bucks winning and Falcons losing, Tampa is now a game up on the Falcons. Falcons own the tiebreaker, but Tampa has the easier schedule going forward. So we'll see if we do get Penix into the lineup. Could throw a wrench in a lot of your playoff plans. So just have a backup plan if you own Kirk Cousins and he is one of your starters that you've been counting on all season. Don't be surprised and don't come crying when Cousins all of a sudden isn't starting for you in a playoff matchup, because this change from Cousins to Penix, I'm telling you, it could come at any time now. Literally at halftime of the next game. So just be ready, be forewarned. And you should have known this the moment when you had Cousins on your roster and they drafted Michael Penix that this was not going to last long for Cousins if he was not performing well. So now it's going to come time to pay the piper if you didn't plan accordingly. Bijan doing his thing, 92 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Got stolen one by Algier. So Algier had a solid day as well, 63 yards on the ground and the touchdown. Through the air, it was Darnell Mooney back in business. 6 for 142. Ray McLeod showing up 8 for 98, and Drake London 5 for 70 on 10 targets. So keep that in mind going forward. Ray McLeod is a potential flex if you're in a deeper league. I have Ray in a deeper league and have been playing him a lot recently. So I've been happy with Ray. It's just the way the offense is run down there in Atlanta that he's been getting plenty of action. And so Kyle Pitts is the one who's hurt the most from it, I think. He's just had one catch for 14. I don't think that came till midway through the fourth quarter. So yeah, Kyle Pitts just, what can I say? We're getting kind of used to it now from Pitts. Over on the Viking side of things, Hawkinson just 4 for 45. So nothing spectacular there either, but I think there's a little more hope for Hawkinson right now than Pitts. But we'll see. Once Penix gets in, who knows? Who knows who his favorite will turn out to be? Because we don't want to deny the talent that is there with Pitts. They're just not. It's just not being used right now. That's all, and it happens. We got to make adjustments, though. If you've got other options at tight end, don't be afraid to play them over Pitts. All right, we'll get through this. Oof. Yeah. What do we want to know about New Orleans and the Giants? Well, Derek Carr won't be starting the rest of the year. But yeah, so watch that. It's going to be probably Spencer Rattler, which hurts the Alvin Kamara owners. Kamara had another one of those ugly 17 for 14 on the ground games where he caught 5 for 35 through the air, just enough to save his own ass fantasy wise, but team wise wasn't special. Now the Saints still came out of there with the win. So ultimately, that's the bottom line. You can see Kendre Miller finally getting into the action, 10 for 32 and the touchdown, and gets into the end zone. Juwan Johnson benefiting from Taysom Hill's absence, went 4 for 50 and a touchdown. MVS 4 for 51. If you had to play him in your last flex spot, I guess that was all right. Obviously, you want the big deep ball touchdowns from MVS, and he's better suited in a best ball league, but whatever, it happens. Got a guy down here for the Cowboys. All right. Anyway, back over to the Giants. Malik Neighbors came into this game with a groin hip injury issue. Ended up playing, went 5 for 79 for those of you who still started him. So an all right game from Neighbors, but nothing spectacular. Just the fact that he gutted it out and played shows his grit there. Tyron Tracy, 16 for 45, and the touchdown he snuck in the fourth quarter there. Tracy added 5 for 38 on the ground. So he definitely got home for those of you who started him. And yeah, we can continue to probably see some similar numbers here from Tracy. I don't think that their ground game is going to be too overwhelming, and they're going to have to scrap it by the second half of most of these games going forward. So expect a low rushing yardage total, but high dump off rate to Tyron there, 5 for 38 this week. Drew Lock, very ugly, 21 of 49 for 227, no touchdowns and a pick. We'll see who gets the start next week for the Giants. Right. Got to have some better games on the slate than those, right? Oh, yeah. You betcha. Let's get into this Carolina Philadelphia game, which was much closer than the Eagles liked to see. Now, big news out of this one is the unfortunate injury to Jonathan Brooks. Hasn't been confirmed yet. Or no, it was earlier. Sorry. Yes, it was a torn ACL, his same ACL that he tore last season. So, can I say, I feel terrible for the kid. I mean, here he is getting his dream of being drafted in the NFL. He's got to sit out while he's rehabbing an injury. Finally, he works his way back into playing shape and gets in here. And things were looking up after the last couple of weeks for Brooks, but now, and you combine that with the re-signing of Chuba Hubbard. Where are we putting the value on Jonathan Brooks now? I mean, all things equal, you got to consider this upcoming class with tons of nice rookie running backs. I mean, are you giving up a second for Jonathan Brooks, an injured Jonathan Brooks now with Chuba Hubbard ahead of him? I find it hard to see. Maybe 2/3. I don't know. I mean, who would you rather have, an injured Jonathan Brooks going into next season, or a shiny new rookie running back from the second round who's getting a new opportunity and is healthy going into the 2025 season? That's going to be the type of questions we're going to have to answer this offseason. So start thinking about it now. Just because you don't own Jonathan Brooks doesn't mean that you might not get offered him in a deal. All right. I don't mind him as a throw in on the backside of a deal, I guess, but I am not valuing him very highly right now. Part of that is because of Chuba, as we mentioned, 26 carries, 92 yards, and a touchdown on the ground, added 4 for 15 through the air. So got over 100 yards total offense. This is the choo-choo Chuba machine here in Carolina. Dave Canales doing things very similar to what he did last year with Rashad White, just dominating touches here with Chuba Hubbard. Adam Thielen, since he came back from an injury, has just been a monster. For anybody in Dynasty who's able to capitalize on that with like a 4th-round pick, man, you are getting paid handsomely back for that. 9 for 102 for the old man Thielen. Over to the Eagles side of the ball, it was Sir Saquon doing his thing. Another 124-yard game here. Man, Saquon is still on pace to break the rushing record this season. So hats off to Saquon for keeping it up. Jalen Hurts. Jeez, the guy throws for 108 yards and still scores over 20 for you. He got 2 touchdowns through the air, one to Devonta Smith, one to the backup tight end Grant Calcaterra, who's getting the start now with Dallas Goedert going to IR. So keep that in mind with your lineups. AJ Brown just 4 for 43 and Devonta 4 for 37 with the touchdown. But when there's only 108 yards to split up, what are you going to do, right, AJ? I would not be worried about either of these two receivers going forward into the playoffs at all. Hurts just doing his thing there on the ground, 59 yards and another touchdown, as I said, well into the 20s in points scored for you in fantasy land. All right. Which game should we chat up next here? We'll dive into Steel Town. Check out the Browns versus the Steelers. Of course, that snow game a couple of weeks ago on a Thursday night. Jameis Winston headed into Pittsburgh, and he he chucked it 41 times, 24 for 41, 212, two touchdowns, two picks. Another classic Jameis game here. Um, Doing just enough to keep things interesting. Jerry Judy just keeping this roll alive. 5 for 64 this time only, but still got in the end zone. And Joku 7 for 42 and a touchdown on 13 targets. So Joku is just loving Jameis Winston slinging it back there. Nick Chubb only 48 yards on the ground. So don't trust Chubb in your flex spot if you have to. But I would be more than adequate starting Judy and Elijah Moore in flexes. I know Elijah Moore only had 3 for 34 this week, but typically he has been getting 7 or 8 targets a week from Jameis. So keep that in mind. Over to Pittsburgh and Russell Wilson just keeping it going without George Pickens, who had a hamstring injury come up on Friday. They decided to sit him this week. And Pat Fryermuth took advantage of that in the red zone, getting a touchdown, 3 for 48 for him. Other than that, though, it was nothing much at all from the Steelers receivers. Wilson only had 158 yards throwing, but as you can see here, he divvied up the targets 9 different ways. So there wasn't really anyone who dominated. You can see Van Jefferson snuck in a touchdown there. Najee, decent game, 53 yards and a touchdown, kind of what we've come to expect from Najee now. He's going to get around 50 to 60, 70 yards each week. Whether he falls into the end zone or not is whether it's a serviceable game. Jalen Warren looking good, but he does every week. 47 yards on just 9 carries. Only caught 2 for 25 though this week, so not as good as last fantasy wise for Warren. All right. But yeah, moving forward, just watch that George Pickens injury. It was a hamstring. So those tend to be very tricky. And especially this time of year, you don't want to be going with a donut. So make sure Pickens is playing before you insert him into your lineups. All right. We'll go check out the out west here and check on the Seahawks, division leading Seahawks traveling down to Arizona, who had a chance to tie things up in this division. Well, this was a 2-game swing for the Seahawks as they come out with the big 18 win. Story here was Zach Charbonnet. Man, should have had a GIF for Zach on there, but everybody crying for Zach to be given more touches. Proven right here. 22 of 30, 134, a 51-yard touchdown, ended up with 2 touchdowns on the day. Added another 7 for 59 through the air. So, geez, almost 200 total purpose yards for Sharps. JSN keeping it rolling here. He's had 7 or 8 straight great games. Just 5 for 82 and a touchdown, but still, I will take that all day from JSN. DK, just 4 for 49. The target share, as you can see, is pretty equal between JSN and DK. Just wasn't as big of a throwing game for the Seahawks as they only threw it 30 times. I say only because they average about 40 attempts a week. Kyler on the day struggled, but fantasy-wise, he ended up looking okay as we got 25 of 38, 259, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Added just 16 yards on the ground, though. Elsewhere there, you see the 90 yards from Connor. Trey McBride, 7 for 70. Michael Wilson getting into the end zone. And then Marv there, 4 for 49. Underperforming. I just want to know if you want to share your thoughts. Where are you with Marv? I know a lot of people are down on him. I don't know. I'd still slide him in somewhere. Like the way Puka's playing, and we're going to talk about him in a minute, but how do you have, I don't know how it'd be possible to have Marv ahead of Puka right now. Okay. Now Marv versus Brian Thomas. that's a different story because you have the Trevor Lawrence injury. It's not like Brian Thomas is tearing it up right now either. So, um, meh. I mean, Thomas has had the better season, I guess, so far. But part of that has to do with just the where they were ranked before the season. Marv was in a different stratosphere from Brian Thomas. I mean, you had to pay up to get Marvin Harrison, sometimes the value of three firsts, whereas Brian Thomas was just a late first round pick. Um, so anybody who got Brian Thomas is pretty darn happy right now, whereas a Marvin Jones Harrison owner is generally disappointed. Okay. But I will say this, I would definitely go out and try and buy Marv this offseason because his narrative is going to be a little bit down. All right. At least early on in the offseason. So that might be my early offseason buy for you. Keep in mind, look at that target share. I mean, McBride, 14 targets. That's why you can see that Marv isn't being force fed yet. Yet. Because that's the key word, yet. He hasn't been force fed. I think that the potential is there. He just needs to become him and Kyler just need to get more fluidity, more reps in. I mean, I'm talking for a couple of guys who probably thrown the ball 1,000 times together already, but there's a difference between practice time and then there's actual field time too. I think they do need to put more time in the off season together, though. Think about some of the best tandems, quarterback, wide receiver tandems out there. The best ones are the ones, think of Rodgers and Devontae Adams, Stafford to Cup, right? Those guys put in the work in the off season. So you need to see that from Kyler this off season with Marv. And then we can see Marv's true potential realized, I think. Anyway, that's my thoughts there. Is it possible? Yes. Will it happen? I don't know. Don't know. But if you ask me between Brian Thomas and Marvin Harrison, I'm still taking Marv. Okay. Yeah, we this is a game we've all wanted to talk about all day long, right? Let's do it. So we had the Buffalo Bills roll into LA and SoFi, take on the Rams, and my goodness, whew, what a game here. I mean, if only we could have had a slightly better ending if the Bills hadn't taken that stupid timeout. So anyway, there was under 2 minutes to go, and the Bills were driving to cut it to one score game, and they get down to like a minute 20 or so left, and they're down to the goal line, and they try to run it up the gut with Allen, and then they call a timeout to stop the clock, and they should have had another play ready right away because they needed all three timeouts. Is my point? Because if it scored, then they could actually kick it deep and just try and stop the Rams, which granted they hadn't done all day, so I don't know if it really would have mattered. Just me being greedy, asking for a better ending to this game, but partially as a Josh Allen owner in a couple of leagues, I really preferred to see Josh win this game. But I don't think he's got to do much else for his MVP resume here. I think he's the front runner right now. This game would have just maybe like cemented it as a legendary game for him that you can point to during an MVP campaign. Allen, first player ever with 3 passing touchdowns and 3 rushing touchdowns in the same game. This guy just is a one-man show. 342 yards through the air, 82 on the ground. James Cook just 6 for 20 on the ground. So Allen making up for the loss there. Khalil Shakir I say finally. I say finally because he got in the end zone. Like this is what we've been waiting for. I don't know how many weeks in a row we've had between somewhere between 5 to 7 catches for Shakir and 60 to 75 yards. It seems what he is 6 for 75 every week, which yeah, that's fine. As a Shakir owner, I wasn't banking on him being one of my top 3 or 4 receivers this year. So having him as a 5th or 6th wideout is just gravy, honestly, because you can plug him in any week and you got a boom. You're not getting a donut there from some flash in the pan, deep threat. You just plug him in, boom, 12 points. You're good. Now, this week, he went up to what, 15, 21 points. So nice game for you. Hey, gotta love that. Mari Cooper bouncing back here, 6 for 95. Mac Hollins getting into the end zone, 4 for 57. And Ty Johnson, the backup running back, well outdoing James Cook. Whew. Ty getting what was it, a 41-yard touchdown and added another grab. So he had 2 for 55 with the long touchdown. Any of you best ball Ty Johnson owners, you know what I mean. Oh yeah, this was a nice one. Ty's one of the guys I love to flip around on the bottom end of my roster in the best ball formats. Just week to week, flip a few guys around. Gotta love those 4th, 5th wide receivers on teams. Best ball. Over to the Rams side, though, Puka was definitely not outdone. So, Puka, he ended up with 5 carries for 16 yards and a touchdown. Those were just ones that were thrown like behind the line of scrimmage. But then added 12 for 62 through the air and a touchdown. So, all told, what was it? 12 catches, 178 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Man, where do you rank Puka? Like, how long is it going to take this guy to get the Amon-Ra treatment that Amon-Ra just got this season, right? It took Amon-Ra a good couple seasons to outdo the filth put on that nasty 4th-round draft status and overcome that because his numbers have been way more consistent than Chase, more consistent than CD even, and about the same in consistency to Jefferson, just not the flash. You know, you got Amon-Ra and you got Jefferson. If you watch the receivers thing on Netflix, you'll see what I mean. Not that Jefferson is not like overly doing things. I think he gets excited when he scores and he does a few little fun dances, but he's not out there flashing $1 million cars or whatever. So point being though, Amon-Ra is even more strict right by the book. He's first one in, last one out type lunch pail guy. And so it took him a little longer to be valued properly, should I say. And so right now, even with Puka's big game, it still represents a buying opportunity for Puka. To put it in perspective, what I'm saying is on our keep trade cut value board, right? You know, most of you have checked out keep trade cut. It's not the Bible, but it's something to use, right? And keep trade cut, you've got Justin Jefferson or Chase as the 1-2 at receivers, and they're up valued around over 9,000, right? They're close to the elite quarterbacks. Like Josh Allen is at 99 probably, or Lamar Jackson is. I'm not sure which one's ranked highest right now. But then you have Jefferson Chase right behind them, right up there in 9,000 plus, and it'll fluctuate during the week. But then you have CD, who's dropped a little because of his injury, and then of course the Dak injury. CD's not back down by like 7 to 7,500 range, so definitely a good buying opportunity on him. um, mostly because just the fact that he's kind of available, really. And then you have Amon Ra, who's still hanging around in the between eight and 9,000 in that range. So, and then after him, you'd have Malik Neighbors, right? So where would you put Puka amongst these? If you really want to break it down, like Puka's sitting there with Stafford still this season. CD is without Dak. So I would have Puka ahead of CD actually right now if I were to rank them. But I think that the general public still sees Puka as that guy who got drafted in the fifth round. And so not the flashy first round pick that CeeDee Lamb was. So right now you could easily get Puka plus for CeeDee Lamb. Not easily. I'm not going to say that, but somebody who owns Puka may understand its value. I'm saying that the opportunity is still out there to buy a player that should be valued at 8,500 or more, and it's not yet. I certainly hope you were able to try and find him at some point this offseason when he was valued down at like the dynasty wide receiver 15 or something stupid. Yeah. All right. But that's all I've got on Puka. Cooper Cup came home for everybody, 5 for 92 and a touchdown, even when Puka had a monster game like this. Kyron Williams, 29 for 87, 2 touchdowns. There you go, Kyron. I was wrong. But Blake Corum looked better. Blake Corum looked better. Now, is this a Joe Mixon, Chase Brown type thing? Probably. Okay. But just mind you, if Blake Corum gets his opportunity, he's going to smash. And I don't know if Kyron Williams gets his job back. So that's all I'm saying. I'm still put it this way: I didn't go and buy Kyron Williams in any leagues yet, so still a little bit leery of jumping onto the bandwagon on a sixth round draft pick that has a more talented back in his backfield on a team that needs to win every single game that they're playing. So, Sean McVay has been a master of playing the hot hand at running back. And so let me tell you, if Blake Corum starts looking better, he is going to get action. All right. What is it? How many years straight can we go back that the Rams have had a different running back lead the team in rushing? All right. Now, Kyron's going to do it this year. So he's going to be the first back to back guy since Todd Gurley. Okay. So that's how McVay plays his hand at running back. And you can see it in some of the other teams that have taken on their offense. The Buccaneers backfield is pretty wishy-washy week to week. We all know. And then you have the uh, you have the Falcons who have used it, and you still kind of have Tyler Algier stealing work from Bijan, right? So it's like, yeah, you have all this force-fed product to one guy, but there's still meat left on the bone there for Bijan, right? Bijan could have a Saquon type season. He just needs he has Saquon type talent. That's all I'm getting at. All right. Stafford ended the day getting over 300 yards again, 23 of 30 for 320, 2 touchdowns, and a must-win game for the Rams. You could see there, Demarcus Robinson, mind you, he had a long touchdown call back from a penalty, I believe, and then another long one that he was clearly held on early in the play, and it would have been another 40-yard game. So D-Rob's still doing his thing. We got a good one going on here in Dallas. It is 20-20 with 5 minutes to go. Bengals just getting the ball back here. Let's see what Joe can do. Oh, man, this was an exciting week. I didn't even go over my Buccaneers game. Do we want to look? We'll go over the Niners game briefly and just say that all the Bears sucked and the Niners, you know, anybody who bought Garendo, hopefully you didn't pay too much for him. That's all I gotta say. Because what you should have paid is something that pays off just in a good game this week, a second or third or two thirds. Paid more than that, well, that's on you. Um Rendo, 78 yards and 2 touchdowns, also added 2 for 50 through the air. So very solid week. It's a stud Niners running back performance type game. Now behind him, because Garendo suffered an injured ankle and they're looking at it, and we'll see what his status is because they play Thursday night. So this will be the big injury to watch going forward. Hopefully you stayed long enough to listen to this because Patrick Taylor is going to be a hot waiver wire pickup. But Izzy Abanikanda isn't a bad one either. All right. So Patrick Taylor, I was picking up last week in many leagues. So now I'm sitting on him, but I do own Abanikanda in a couple as well. So just check your waiver wires. It depends on how deep your league is, of course, as well. But I doubt that Garendo will be suiting up this week just because it is the Thursday night matchup. They are playing I forgot. I was looking at them all earlier. They have the Rams coming to town. So another good Thursday night game here. We got the Rams visiting the Niners. Check through these games. Now the Niners, Purdy was a monster, 325 and 2 touchdowns, both to Juwan Jennings, who's becoming like a must start, basically. He's at 7 for 90 and 2 touchdowns. George Kittle added 6 for 151. So just great day all around for the Niners. And like I said, if your name wasn't Rome Odunze, forget it for the Bears. Rome did secured 2 touchdowns. So he's going to be a real interesting one to rank this offseason. Real interesting. I want to see where people have him ranked. Okay. Finally, we'll check out my Buccaneers. I wanted to save it for last. I didn't want to dive into it too early because of my excitement, but I am a Rashad White owner in more leagues than I am a Bucky Irving owner. I'll just put it that way. All right. Not that I'm rooting for anybody's injury, especially on my own team, especially a rookie that's been just tearing it up. Love the way Bucky's playing. So, but his injury flared up, and so he came into the game with a hip injury, and he went out early. Sean Tucker came in though, to keep the Thunder and Lightning rolling here with Rashad White. White finished with 90 on the ground and a touchdown. Baker, just another wild performance. 295, 3 touchdowns, 3 picks through the air. The 3 touchdowns, 2 went to rookie Jalen Millen coming through. So we wanted to see a couple weeks ago, but now is better than ever. So going forward, they've always been talking about him replacing Godwin, and I just don't know that somebody replaces a great veteran receiver like Godwin, but Jalen McMillan, we were hoping for games like this. So this was great to see from the kid, 4 for 59. Mike Evans, 4 for 69, chasing that 1,000-yard mark. Of course, I don't know that Mike it matters that much to Mike, but just knowing his personalities, and he's just going to be all he'll be saying is he appreciates it, of the opportunity and just going out there playing ball. That's how Mike is going to just Mike it, right? But yeah, I hope he gets there. It'd be cool. If not, oh well. Over to the Raiders side, wasn't that great. O'Connell gets hurt, so Desmond Ritter's looking for like he'll have the start next week. Now, I wouldn't be worried about that if I'm a Brock Bowers owner. If I'm a Jacoby Myers owner, maybe a little. He might drop me down one flex spot with Jacoby Myers. Okay, because I gotta say I do like the way O'Connell just grips and rips it. Okay, I think it's going to give him the opportunity. He seems a lot. He has a lot of Neil O'Donnell in him. Okay, if anybody is old enough to remember who Neil O'Donnell was for the Steelers mostly, um, but he was a guy who you needed a decent run game, but when the time came, he could sling it, and O'Connell showed it last week against the Chiefs. Just the play at the very end, it could just cost them, but they were right there. And then you add in a guy like Sear McCormick here. Just man, I had so many shares of this guy. Too bad it was 2 years ago, but regardless, he's showing up now, and he shouldn't be on your waivers if he still is. So this is a guy who's going to get the red zone touchdowns for the few times that the Raiders are in the red zone. At least he's going to be seeing the work. Now, as I mentioned, Bowers, owners, I would not be concerned. Ritter's still going to give him targets. Michael Mayer got into the action this last week, so just keep an eye on that. But I think that Bowers is still king in this receiver room. But that's all I've got for you with that one. We're going to sit back and watch the ending here to the Bengals Cowboys. Thanks for joining tonight. I want to mention my buymeacoffee.com coming up. We're going to stream every night this week, or try to at least, to answer your questions. So leave them wherever you can, in the Patreon, in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and please never stop working.